Meron pang isa.
We have a record now. So I will call the, in about 5 minutes, I will call it a session so that we will start the presentation of Dr. Posadas. Okay, at least Melchor is here now. Welcome, Melchor. Attorney is another lawyer. Melchor Magdamo. Hello, can you unmute yourself, Melchor?
Everybody, unmute yourself. Meron pang pumasok. Jingle Minis Tamayo. Okay, ilan na tayo? 6 na tayo, kasama ko. 6 na tayo. Oh, it's being recorded now. Inano ko rin yung chat. Hindi lumabas yun dyan yung ano mo, message mo sa chat.
Yeah. Yung Dr. Fauci kasi ito eh.
Anyway, let's not pay attention to that first. Let's just pay attention to what we're doing now.
Wala. Sorry.
Okay, andyan na si Jingle.
What's this guy? Meron parang isang nito. Doon. Hindi siya nakabidyo.
Small na.
Okay. At least we're recording now to the cloud. That's good. Okay.
Sure.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Good morning, and it's a good evening here in Tallahassee. It's a good afternoon in the place of Dr. Posadas. So I'm calling the session to order, the plenary session. So and I'm recognizing Dr. Posadas. He'll be presenting a point of privilege. So in about a few minutes, once it's ready, you should be ready to start. It's all yours now, Dr. Posadas.
Isabelo, Siriaco, just join us. Ilan na tayo?
Yes, Seriaco Isabelo joined, yes. There'll be more joining, and I don't know, would you like to wait for 5 more minutes, Dr. Posadas, or we proceed now?
Let's wait for 5 minutes. We can
Okay.
afford 5 minutes.
People are coming in right now, yeah.
Okay.
And they are just given our very, very good internet service in the Philippines, one of the best in the world, we could expect this kind of thing.
Yes. Correct. Attorney Melchor, may I speak na po before Dr. Posadas. Ano yung email mo, Attorney Melchor?
Email?
Yeah.
melchor.magdamo@gmail.com. My first name.
Magdamo, so madaling matandaan. His name plus gmail.com.
Melchor. I'll place it in the chat box.
You will formerly the chief of staff of Chairman Melo in Comelec. Legal. Were you at the legal department then? I don't know if my voice is being heard.
Melchor Magdamo?
I was typing it, melchormagdamo@gmail.com.
Paano naman Magdamo?
Okay, welcome, Jingle. How are you? Why don't you start your video? And also, yan.
Good morning.
Si Jingle. Oh. Very cheerful ang mukha ni Jingle para walang problema sa mundo. Oh.
Mundo mo problema sa atin.
Good. Okay, Dr. Posadas, I have already recognized him, and he's ready to deliver his point of privilege, but he wanted 5 more minutes, so that maybe 1 or 2 more people can join. I would expect that after 30 minutes, more will be joining us, but right now, it is just us. The important thing is to have this on record because we are preparing for the June 12 event, which will be, which a lot of people are looking forward to, although a lot of people are preventing it from happening. But we will be looking forward to that. There are, pero ngayon, ang mga chismes dito ngayon na nasagap po sa mga ibang mga tao dyan sa Manila, matutuloy na raw si Duterte.
Nanawag.
Candidate, no?
June 12, mag-organize na yung sambayanan.
Yung
Visited by
Sambayanan, yung grupo nila Carpio, I think.
Carpio, Tony Carpio.
Yun ang grupo nila.
Isa raw silang grupo, lahat ng mga opposed kay
Meron ding grupo na lumabas
Duterte
din.
will unite under one movement, which is Sambayanan.
Well, we are not bothered by the political cycle. We are organizing the 1899 Congress. Our agenda is revival of the 1899 Philippine Constitution and defining the political agenda of the content of the debate in the coming elections. We don't care about who the candidate is. We care about what their platform could contain. So that is what we are focusing on. Our group will not be at the moment endorsing anybody unless a consensus develops. But right now we are not involved in those kinds of speculation as to kung sinong suportahan natin. According to some people, si Manny Pacquiao is being kicked out of PDP Laban. Is that true?
Mahirap tanggalin si Manny Pacquiao.
Bakit naman?
Kasi
Tatanggalin daw siya eh.
Nag-schedule ang PDP Laban under Mr. Cusi, yung secretary ng Department of Energy, ng convention. Ilan lang umattend. Wala pa yung 100.
Ano ba? Sabi nila maraming umattend. Everybody is hedging. Baka nga maging kandidato si Pacquiao. If Pacquiao wins the Spence fight, then he will be a stronger candidate. If he loses, he might not proceed to run anymore.
Tapos meron pa siyang laban. Kay Terence Spencer.
August 21. Pag matalo siya, hindi na siya siguro tatakbo. Pag manalo, baka tuloy-tuloy siya.
Pero nung time na tumakbo siya, representative, kalaban niya yung isang babae na talo siya. Kahit nanalo siya sa vaccine.
Let me ask something sa speaker natin, si Dr. Roberto Posadas.
Hindi na siguro mag-start siya.
What is the progress, Robert, of contacting the other descendants of the signatories to the 1899 Constitution?
May dalawa na naman nag-join. Bienvenido Lorque at Giuliano Sorbona. Dumarami na tayo.
Welcome, Gian, and welcome, Bienvenido Lorque. We have Dr. Posadas here about to deliver his point of privilege. I have called the session to order, and since we are not fully organized, I am not entertaining questions about quorum because we have not yet fully organized the Congress. But today we will be hearing Dr. Posadas give us his point of privilege speech on the concerns that are momentous to the 1899 movement, which he is the head of. He is I think our 5 minutes are almost up, Dr. Posadas. So in 1 minute, I think the whole platform would be yours.
Okay.
I recognize Dr. Roberto Posadas representing Pangasinan.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, representative from Bayambang, Pangasinan, Roberto Feliciano Posadas rises to be recognized on a point of privilege.
You're recognized.
To open our first Congress of the Republic of our beloved Philippines, Mr. Speaker.
You recognize. Go ahead.
Our most compassionate and patriotic representatives of the first plenary session of Congress of the Republic of the Philippines under the most sovereign 1898 Constitution promulgated by President Emilio Aguinaldo in 1899. My heart is throbbing and my voice is trembling as I speak now, because never a thought or an imagination ever occurred in my lifetime until my advancing years that this moment in Philippine history, more so in a first congressional capture, would pinpoint me as your servant for our people. As a reference to a footnote in history and also for your respective forefathers and your parents' stories later on, my grandfather, Dr. Antonio Feliciano, as related by my late mother, Amparo Feliciano Posadas, in addition to being a Malolos Congress delegate from Pangasinan, was in later years was the attending physician for Leonor Rivera's firstborn child in Dagupan. He was the first University of Santo Tomas Medical School graduate from the province of Pangasinan, which university also I graduated with a bachelor's degree in philosophy and letters in 1961, and from San Diego in 1985, a doctorate in jurisprudence. Let us now most respectfully, with courage, honor, and dignity on this day of determined destiny, officially open our country's first plenary Congress to begin our God-given claim to complete, indeed, fulfill our most supreme people's will under allegiance and trust in a never-ending eternal Vox Populi, Vox Dei. The voice of the people is the voice of God. Again, as a God-given gift, endowed with freedom to determine our chart to navigate our ship of state in the course of national and international events on lands and high seas. This will be Philippines' self-reliance, for without self-reliance and determination, no nation is truly sovereign and independent, sans self-reliance, but with maximum tolerance and compassion. For above and beyond our past and future fate, forged by our forefathers' blood, sweat, and tears, hearkens on the horizon an eternal great sovereign nation for Filipinos, and by the people of the first de jure and pure Filipino Constitution. Our movement indeed, our advocacy is to peacefully shift from a broken 1987 Constitution to reorganize a new nation at last, be it indirectly through a transition revolutionary government and its complexity of forming a time-consuming charter change, or a tightrope balancing act rather than putting together, and thus could risk bringing it to the brink of social cataclysm, short perhaps of an overhaul of same system, political, social, and cultural habits. Or our most still valid and alive, preferable, orderly, direct switch on instant adoption and adaptation with a swear of allegiance by President Rodrigo Roa Duterte as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and as an extension of the Katipunan Army. Thus, sparing our already pandemic grip and greed imposed on our suffering people and leading to a point of no return, boiling up and venting desperately when Filipinos are now more fearful of their government in all branches, again, more fearful of their government than the unidentified virus itself. Notwithstanding any turn of events looming from the various quarters' declaration of revolutionary government, and that of to be padded and paid 22 or 2022 election results. Amidst and through all these turn of events, in either the worst of times or the best of times, in our moving history, now in action, our Malolos 1899 movement will forge on with our own sweat, blood, and tears, as so be it. Even as our movement to shift ship of state is timeless and priceless, upon a petition to invoke any president's oath of office or duty to redress people's grievances under any democratic constitution. We will always pray for heaven to help us all, or we will help to mark ourselves in our lifetime and for all time. Our strong sovereign stance of self-reliance is now best exemplified by the federal-like autonomous regions where their jurisdictional barangay or LGU governance are now usurped by the overextended or expired imposition of the national emergency law. If this were under a parliamentary federal constitution, autonomous governance of LGUs or barangays would have been the timely, legal, orderly escape valves or mechanisms for pent-up politics and people's grievances to be heeded and healed. A country is not a nation without a unification, self-reliance, and compassion for our people's common welfare. As a house is not a home without families, as a country is not a nation without compassion and self-reliance. For the moment compassion dies in our country, our nation begins to die even before it begins. Our Malolos movement for a pure Filipino constitution for a parliamentary federal government will unify self-reliant, independent regional or provincial jurisdictions, each represented in one common parliamentary form. It is then unified by bonds of common all-nation goals for security and defense, economic progress, and peace among other nations. Imagine the pride, industry initiatives, or self-reliance for discipline and health, nature or natural resources, resourcefulness of peoples themselves, and representatives thereof for each respective area, like your very own home, not a mere house in a region or a jurisdiction. We will move on forward to imagine, to dream, and to plan, strive and achieve, lest oblivion prevail again and corruption prevail again. For another impossible dream, no, never. Surrender again, but never surrender again. But mark our words and deeds. With our movement, we will climb even another mountain and never ever to retreat again. And so, Mr. Speaker and my fellow compatriots, thank you, and we move on.
Thank you, Dr. Posadas. The floor is open for questions for Dr. Posadas, and anybody can raise their hand or just stop right now and ask questions regarding your clarifications for Dr. Posadas' point of privilege. Let's give him a big hand.
Morning, Dr. Posadas.
Hi.
Neil Ramos. I'm Jim Hernandez.
Yeah. Go ahead, you have the question, no?
Sorry.
You can ask the question of Dr. Posadas. Dr. Posadas just delivered a speech. You have caught some of it.
Yeah,
If you have some questions, anybody can ask
sorry
questions.
to have missed the. I was with my mother. I was seeing my mother. She's in the hospital.
Okay. you're one of your heirs, Mr. Hernandez.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
We have
that's
a fellow member of the professional conduct is also in attendance and helping us moderate the meeting. Any questions from Jingle or from Giancarlo or Mr. Lurke? Because I think Mr. Lurke, Dr. Posadas mentioned your movement, the Red Group movement, which will make a declaration on June 12th. What would be your reaction to his mention of your group? Mr. Lurke, you have the floor. Have you heard us? Well, I think Mr. Lurke, he has no movement in his display, so maybe he's off. Question, Giancarlo UI or
May I recognize first Sir Josie Balse, he's present here.
I recognize
He's
you,
present here.
Giancarlo, you want to talk?
Josie Balse.
Yes, good morning. Good morning,
Morning.
gentlemen. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Well, for those who are just plugging in right now, Dr. Posadas have just presented to us regarding the 99 movement. And now the floor is open for questions and interpellation of Dr. Posadas.
May I am representing first the Speaker of the NGO, no?
Go ahead.
Why we need to do this, Dr. Posadas?
Yes.
Why do we need to do this? What's the reason for this? For the initiative?
We cannot hear you well, Giancarlo, you're coming in choppy. We cannot hear you at all. You cannot make out what you're saying. There's nothing at all. Redmi 8, do you want to ask a question? Go ahead.
Yes. Good morning. Do you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I presume that if we go back to the Malolos Constitution, all the other constitution after that will become null and void. So all the amendments to those other constitutions will also be null and void. Am I correct?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So if that is the case, the COMELEC is also null and void.
Oh, definitely.
Upon adoption of the Malolos Constitution, the COMELEC disappears.
Okay. So what will replace the COMELEC?
Well, the historical antecedent is that the 1898 Congress had people who were elected and all that. And so let us give the floor to Dr. Posadas to explain that.
Okay.
So the complete form of government under a still valid and de jure and still existing, never abolished 1899 Constitution will take its place, and all other forms, agencies of the former constitution or government will be abolished and disappear from the face of the earth. And there will be adaptation of election laws and other branches of the government accordingly. And there will be retrofitting, adjustment, there will be a commission. And most probably, if it comes to a point where the elections have been for 2022, the Supreme Court and with the cooperation of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, will have to conduct the 2022 elections. Elections will never be abolished. Elections will still go on democratically, but they will have to be regulated and managed by the Supreme Court and the Armed Forces of the Philippines as a transition process to completely adapt and retrofit all the laws and respective jurisdictions under the Malolos Constitution.
Melchor Magdamo is recognized. He wants to add something to the response of Dr. Posadas. Go ahead, Melchor Magdamo, unmute yourself.
This is to reassure those who are afraid of violence, because always remember when 1899 was promulgated, way back in year 1899, the situation there was volatile. In section 94 of the original 1899 Constitution, there is a provision there that allows for graceful exit, which means whatever you find existing, you must give them an opportunity. You don't just chop off their head, but you give them a chance to live gracefully. Which means, for example, if 1899 Constitution were to resurrect today, those in power today, you don't just shoot them. No? You give them a notice, give them a eviction notice to finish, to wind up, and to leave. You know, it's not violent. However, it may become violent eventually. No? But this is to reassure those peace-loving citizens who want to avoid violence, that there's this provision in section 94 of the 1899 Constitution, which, by the way, Felipe Calderon copied much of 1899 Constitution from Costa Rica. In turn, copied much from the French Constitution. And in France, they had a turmoil in the French Revolution. It was drastic. They chopped off the head of Maria Antoinette, if you recall. That's why they revised the Constitution many times. They inserted what is called the Les Miserables provisions, wherein you become magnanimous to those who you find yung mga naabutan mo, no? You be a little bit magnanimous to them. You don't just chop off their head. Give them an opportunity to live peacefully. If you don't live peacefully, then that's the only time violence may come in, perhaps, and hopefully you can avoid that. That is to just to reassure who was not asking question. Red May. Baka natatakot siya, baka maging violent. There is this section 94 in the 1899 Constitution, which will dissipate violence, which will postpone, at least. It cannot prevent violence. It will at least postpone violence.
And
Melchor,
Mr. Speaker, Joffrey is raising his hand. Joffrey.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I want to recognize Joffrey Balse. He can unmute himself. He wants to add something to the discussion. Go ahead, Joffrey Balse.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question is, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You're a little choppy, but we can hear you out.
Can I request others to are not speaking mute themselves because the background noise is quite distracting.
Yeah, it's requesting that everybody else who's not talking, please mute yourselves so that no background noise feedbacks into the speaker. Go ahead,
Oh.
Geoffrey.
All right, thank you. My question is to Dr. Posadas is if the agencies will be dissolved because they are no longer recognized by the 1899 Constitution, what will its effect be on the current civil servants employed by the government if their agencies are dissolved? That's the first question. My second question is, what of the central monetary authority? We will have to maintain our currency. What will happen? Will we go back to a regime that was pegging the Philippine peso to the Mexican peso, which definitely is can cause a lot of confusion in the markets. And third, do we revert to a taxation or fiscal governance that was prescribed in the 1899 Constitution? Are all of the taxes that the Filipinos are being charged with, will they all be suspended and will we revert to the 1899 fiscal policy? So those are my three questions for our excellent speaker. Thank you very much.
Dr. Posadas, can you respond to that?
Yes, very good questions. Let me start.
Si Direk Posadas pala. Hello po, sir.
Hi, kamusta? Let me start with a delineation of a Malolos Constitution governance or constitution as it is not a rebellion. It is not a rebellion against the 1987 Constitution or President Duterte himself. As a matter of fact, we'd rather have President Duterte declare his Pledge of Allegiance to the Malolos Constitution, thereby instantly creating a ship of state, a building where there are rooms to be fitted and retrofitted accordingly. So the commission and all other employees and agencies will go on. And as a matter of fact, in the 1899 Constitution or parliamentary form of government, individual rights are intact. It's right there and then. All individual rights, both Filipinos, friends, and foreigners, rights are intact in that there will be no vacuum of police enforcement, security, and defense. Because right then and there, the government will hit the deck running and therefore will make all the adjustments and the process necessary to segue into all of these agencies and commissions. And therefore, all the agents and employees and officials remain intact accordingly until such time there will be an orderly change of heads or officers in charge, and the very representatives of the Congress themselves will have their own election. In the meantime, the Congress and the members of Congress and the Senate will remain until 2022, or their term accordingly will end on 2022 for another set of elections, this time for parliamentary members of the Malolos Constitution or federal government. So there need be no fear that everything will be chaotic, disorderly, and violence, because there will be a set of individual rights intact accordingly, and as a matter of fact, with the instant adaptation, since there is no vacuum, there will never, or a habeas corpus declaration habeas corpus need not be suspended, because completely the police and the armed forces of the Philippines will continue on. So there is no vacuum. Everything will work right away, but for the other agencies that will be retrofitted and changed accordingly, very orderly and peaceful.
Thank you very much, Dr. Posadas. Can I have a follow-through question?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
And I would imagine, therefore, in order for the retrofitting to immediately happen, there must be a series of administrative orders or presidential decrees or executive instructions for that retrofitting that you have mentioned. Have we prepared a series of presidential orders? That's my first question. The second question will also be quite proactive. Certain regions that may declare themselves loyal to the 1987 Constitution and belligerent towards the First Republic that will be restored. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dr. Posadas, you have the floor.
Vector, I didn't quite get that. Can you
Two questions.
clarify yourself, Mirza?
Sorry, this is Joffrey.
Yeah.
Dr. Posadas, a follow-through question. When you mentioned retrofitting, will it not require a series of presidential decrees or orders in order for it to take effect as soon as possible? In the same way, Marcos had a series of presidential decrees for a transition into his 1973 Constitution.
Yes.
Number two, the second question is, how do we deal with local governments that may declare themselves belligerent and loyal to the 1987 Constitution? So, two questions.
Can I request Mr. Speaker Melchor to pick that up for me?
The question posed was that will this require a lot of changes to retrofit the Constitution to the current context of the Philippine condition? And what will be done to those who would not follow the allegiances or submit the allegiance to the 1899 Constitution? Is that the correct question, Mr. Nelson?
Yes, to clarify, to be more specific, have we prepared a series of presidential orders to put into motion the retrofitting required for smooth transition? And number two,
if I may insert a point of information. The American Constitution has been subjected to 32 amendments to make it the Constitution that it is today for the United States. And out of these 32 amendments, 27 has been properly ratified by the states, because in the United States, the amendments to the Constitution are ratified state by state. So definitely there will be changes to the Constitution to make it fit the existing condition. The 1898 Constitution must be changed to fit the existing conditions of the country. I will let Dr. Posadas elaborate on that.
Yeah, of course, the president himself, once he pledges allegiance, instantly the 1899 Constitution takes effect. So in effect, he becomes the first prime minister doing all these adjustments and adoptions, or adaptation rather than first doing a series of decrees and orders, and he will have to adjust everything accordingly as to the need and the timing of all processes. So as a prime minister, no longer as a president. So insofar as that is concerned, to your question, there are not as yet any prepared prime minister decrees or orders. That will happen. That will happen for sure, and eventually that will have to happen because all of these things will be adjusted in time and simultaneously with what's happening as the turn of event.
Kasama na rin yun. Kukunin ko. Nandun sa akin.
Mr. Speaker,
Go ahead,
point of
Mr. Basa,
procedure.
you still have the floor.
Point of procedure, can you kindly mute others who are not speaking? Can you
Doon ko to
kindly
kahapon ko pa
Roberto
dito, limang beses na ako na. Doon ko to sinusurrender yan.
can the host please mute everyone?
Ngay.
Doon ko sana yan. Sa'yo na? Sige, thank you.
I'm requesting everybody to remute with a chat message, but I am not the one controlling the operations.
Yeah, okay. Who is the host? Rufino Bartolaba, can you please mute everyone first?
I'm trying to.
Request and request.
I'm already a mute.
But there are still extraneous noise going on. Even if I
think
mute
the people with
everybody,
their microphones on are.
it could be coming from your end, Mr.
No, I have.
Balse.
Well, if I mute myself,
Maingay dyan siguro sa inyo.
the sound control.
Okay.
It's not.
Nakamute na nga ako eh.
If you can hear yourself, then you are not muted. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, can I request Dr. Posadas to continue speaking, please, in response to my question?
As I was saying, Joffrey, be assured that President Duterte will be the first prime minister in transition in governing and enforcing the laws of the highest law of the land, the Malolos Constitution, accordingly. So necessarily there will be a decrease in time for all of these adjustments and processes, but seeing to it that individual rights are protected and intact, and never, according to the Malolos Constitution, set of individual rights protection, never will the Prime Minister violate the Constitution itself at the beginning, especially at the beginning of time, or never or ever will be violated. He will act accordingly, according to the laws and adaptations and adjustments of the Malolos Constitution. And it's not a rebellion where everybody can be arrested or dismissed, nor appointed, so much so that there will be so disorderly conduct of events, and at the same time, he will see to it that all of these will be retrofitted, and even probably create a commission of reconciliation. But all criminal laws will remain intact, and that's very important because, first of all the former charges and existing criminal cases will have to be pursued to its end, to its justifiable end, because nobody will be spared, and everything will be done through a reconciliation process and adjustments according to the agencies of the new constitution.
Thank you very much, Dr. Posadas. Will you indulge me in asking another legal question?
Go ahead, you recognize.
Thank you very much. How about certain legislation that we have whose basis is on.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
How about other laws and legislation like the civil code, the family code, the criminal code that you've mentioned? Will they be still in effect because their foundation is more on the basis of common law rather than the Constitution itself? That's my other question. Thank you.
Yeah, in the absence of a common law, we're still going to be, I suppose, the Malolos Constitution is in effect according to a certain, in the nature of codified laws. And we're not really, after all, in England, they don't have a constitution. They are all under a common law that for all good to be done, theory and principles of never the means to justify, or never the end to justify the means. And we will have all these codified laws and statutes intact accordingly until they're made in such a way that they will be retrofitted accordingly. But all remaining charges and existing criminal charges will have to be pursued to its end.
Thank you. Just to clarify, so what is not covered by the 1899 Constitution will be referred to common law. Is that right? Thank you.
Well, it's a little anticipatory, and I probably will not guess an answer on that matter because there are codified and statutory laws that will cover almost everything. But in the absence, perhaps, of a codified or a statutory law or rule, then probably even common sense will have to apply, if not common law.
Point of clarification only. All the municipal laws, and by municipal laws, all the laws that apply within the territory of the Philippines will subsist after the adoption of the 1899 Constitution. It can only be revised based on processes that are legislative and also by a challenge to the Supreme Court under the aegis of the 1899 Constitution this time. So we will have stability, and the transition will not be drastic because these processes will be in place. We're in a process of rationalization and reconciliation will be done. In case Attorney Melchor Macdamo would like to chime in, I recognize him right now to clarify the questions asked by Mr. Balse.
The
questions.
questions.
Melchor Macdamo. Yeah.
Thank you. The questions of Mr. Joffre Balse pertain to non-political laws. Like, for example, if we dehibernate the 1899 Constitution today, what will happen to marriage laws? May a 17-year-old boy marry a 17-year-old girl? That is void under our present laws. Those type of laws will remain existing, will remain subsisting. Those are non-political laws, common laws. Our criminal law is 1931, which means we already have the revised penal code before the 1935 Constitution. Our civil code is 1951, or 1949 rather, which means long before the 1987 Constitution, we already had a civil code, which came from a Spanish civil code, which is earlier than the 1899. So those are non-political laws. It won't affect them. The monetary system, they are also we will not jump back to the peso, the Mexican peso of 1800s, because monetary laws are the main bulk of monetary laws are non-political. Only a few portion of the monetary laws are political. So there will be stability, but we can evolve them gradually to align with the spirit of the 1899 Constitution.
Thank you very much. I found that I think we have to educate. We have to have a general public education when that happens. But I'm thank you for the answers.
Thank you, Joffrey.
Okay, any other source of interpellation? I recognize Remy and Aid. which is really Ida Enriquez.
John Carlos.
You're muted. You're muted. We cannot hear you because you're muted, Ida. Unmute.
Okay.
Okay.
I was not referring to on my first question. I was not referring, or I am not afraid of there's going to be chaos after. What I would like to know is how do we implement all the rules and regulations of the Malolos Constitution to our present condition without any problem with the terrorists, the BARM, and the smugglers, because especially the pandemic now. How do we challenge that, and also how do we arrange for the transition from the Congress and the Senate to our new Congress and Senate?
Go ahead, Dr. Posadas, you recognize.
John Carlos.
First of all, the criminal laws are existing against all kinds of crimes, drugs, so forth and so on. They will not be suspended at all. They will go on because the individual rights of the Malolos Constitution specifies that these are all protected and everybody will be according to the due process of law. And with the adoption of the system itself, there will be no suspension of habeas corpus. Okay, things, all enforcement of all criminal laws against drug and syndicate and lords and drug lords and criminals, and as a matter of fact, all existing charges will remain intact to up to the end where it is solved and justified. But in the meantime, everything will go on as they are without any interruption at all. But except for the fact that it will not be the president anymore as under a presidential system, but in a form of a parliamentary federal government, that he will become the prime minister to see to it that he will still be the chief enforcer of all criminal laws. Of course, through the branches of the armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine police. So rest assured, suspended, nothing will be abolished insofar as all of these laws are concerned. They will have to go on because the government system hits the deck running right away because there is already an existing ship to transfer to. The ship of 1987 Constitution will no longer be applied. It's gone. Okay, so it will be done accordingly and orderly, and perhaps even through temporary urgent commissions to make all of this and retrofit and segue and make all the connections work together. So there will be no chaos, no violence, because after all, there's no need to suspend habeas corpus.
Thank you very much.
Magdamo has a mute yourself. Switch off your electric fan.
May I have the floor, Mr. Speaker? Will be allowed to speak?
Ang mga electric fan.
Who is the one who's raising? You have to raise your hand if you want to speak.
Somebody's raising a hand.
Grandma right now is having this and will give you the floor later. Go ahead, Melchor.
Okay, I'll make it short. In fairness, kasi may naunang nag-raise ng hand eh. In favor of, in fairness, sorry to the one who raised the hand, but the speaker gave it to me. Anyway, we go back to history. If you recall, in the 1899 Constitution, I think it's section 100, that there is a council. One who will issue the transition decrees will be a council, not a single dictator. According to section 100. It is following the tradition of 1892, the founding of the Katipunan. Remember when Jose Rizal was arrested, 1892, July 7, which is the foundation of the Katipunan. Jose Rizal was arrested. They thought he was killed. They thought he was salvaged. A group of 7 consisting of Deodato Arellano, Andres Bonifacio, and 5 others. They formed a council which became known as the Kagalang-galanging Katipunan, or Katipunan for short. That Katipunan provision is still in 1899. It's section 100 of 1899. So what we can do today is, since we cannot form a parliament yet, we are so few here, like how many attended this right now? I think we're just 12 or 14. At least we can form a council in the council of 7. We cannot form a parliament.
Okay, thank you.
At least form a council following section 100 of the 1899 Constitution, and let that council issue the transition decrees to make the vote. If we cannot achieve the numbers, of course, if we can achieve the numbers in form of parliament, why not? 210. I think historically it was 200. Can we make 210? If not, that is to start with 7. So that is to perhaps to answer Red.
I am Aida. Redmi is Aida. Thank you very much.
I am recognizing Jaime Hernandez. He has not spoken clearly. You can talk now, Jaime Hernandez. Go ahead. Oh, he muted himself. Okay, I'm recognizing Jaime Carlo Iway. You want to talk? Go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Maingay. May extra yung sound.
May I
Yung
be allowed to speak?
nagsasalita sana, i-mute nyo at saka yung magsasalita, i-switch off nyo yung electric fan. I think that's the one causing
There is somebody with an electric fan going on.
Unwanted noise. Kaya lang kay Balsin, hindi na siya nagsasalita at saka tinan off yung electric fan. Nawala na yung ganun. Okay? Everybody,
yes, Mr. Speaker, Dr. Posadas.
If you're speaking, please switch off your electric fan. Okay? Hanggang ngayon, andyan pa rin.
May I now be allowed to speak? Hello?
Go ahead, Jaime Hernandez, you're recognized.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before we go too far, I heard Mayor Brillante talking about the holding of elections in 2022. I doubt that it should be conducted very soon at all, because, you know, in Thailand, where they just had a coup d'etat, the military would intervene because of a failure or maybe cheating in the elections. In our case, it's difficult because, you know, everyone knows how the election goes here in the Philippines. It takes much more than having voting out a COMELEC or COMELEC. It's about education, educating the people. So with all this buying out by vote buying by politicians, I don't think we should be holding an elections too soon in the next year. So I don't think 1 year or between now and the first Monday of May would be a good time to hold an election. So a rejoinder to that, you, Mr. Speaker, the barangay captains, our punong barangays will be still in the position long after the president will have exited in 2022. So by this time, I think are now having this emergency. The president now, short of waiting for the 2022 elections, the president will now have to appoint all the local officials, because appointing will be no different from elections, having an elections who yielded or who will yield local officials who had bought or who have bought of their office. So I think the president will have this time to appoint all elective local officials to toe the line in implementing our national emergency. This is the national emergency we're having now is I think a blessing in disguise, so that the president will issue orders direct to the people who will follow him and the duly constituted authority in the president being our leader in this revolutionary government. And for example, as I am representing Bicol for now, I've been there is this important in every revolutionary mood. The people are now, for example, in Albay, the revolutionary mood is as flourishing as ever, because the issue of electricity, the oligarch there has taken control, and what used to be the genius, the Marcos genius of having people-owned electric cooperative, which is Marcos genius, because its creation and in link with the NEA, the Electrification Administration, National Electrification Administration, is to put electricity in the country. So that is one example, the revolutionary mood. And then for may I now go to the citizen army that should be in control, because we have a law on the citizen army. I am a citizen of I am an officer in the UP Corps of Cadets in my college years. So I think right in Albay, I have already talked the citizen army. This is the reserve force who are to buttress the standing army that we have now. They should be used. Citizen army. This is called the citizen army. To maybe take control of any violent behavior coming from all those to be affected. That is May I reiterate first here that just as we had this, we want to vote out. If by voting out, we choose these oligarchs, just like Thailand now, they had a coup d'etat. The military intervenes and then they would call an election. And in the meantime, military junta takes over, but only for the meantime to prepare for to prepare for the holding of national elections. So we will have to defer first the holding of elections until we educate the people. This is not so simple as legislating as by the 1899, it will legislate or keep or legislate the extinction of the COMELEC, but this is not so simple as having COMELEC thrown out of the window, but the national government together with the people who will be appointed in the local level to all local elections, who will serve and who will implement the national emergency program of government and the economic policies and continuing the program of government and of anti-corruption policy of the government. We will conduct an education, extensive education program and in wearing out all these attitudes of the people, because the people who are now takes control of our elections. These people who are bought takes control of the elections. We who are the wise, who will vote good government, we cannot do this. We cannot do it because of all these, the numbers that we call the majority, which become putative. As a result, we have a government out of a dishonest people. That's all, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, I'll give the floor to the speaker, the presenter of the point of privilege, Roberto Posadas, and after that, Melchor Magdamo after him. Go ahead, Robert.
I was able to identify who is using the electric fan. Minute ko na siya, kaya nawala yung extra news sound.
Okay,
Nasa
go
likod
ahead.
yung
Thank you very
electric
much.
fan
Go
niya.
ahead, Robert Posadas.
What was that again, Gil?
There was a lengthy comment from Jaime Hernandez regarding, in summary, I would say that he doesn't like any peaceful transition, or not peaceful, but no elections after the takeover or after the shift to the 1898 Constitution. He wants a period of prolonged voter education before any elections to normalcy are made. So you can comment on that, and after that, Mr. Magdamo can also chime in.
No, we probably it would be in the best interest of the country and of the people just to proceed with the elections of 2022 as scheduled, but with a difference of management and administration of the elections, in that Smartmatic and COMELEC will no longer be the agency and the processes by which election will be conducted. And through the supervision of the Supreme Court and the enforcement of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the candidates will have just to be candidates for members of the parliament, no longer as a member of the House of Representatives, or there will be only one house of Congress, So every candidate for the legislature will have to be, or will have to run as a candidate to be a member of the parliament or one house. And that of the president and vice president, of course, will have to be changed temporarily uh, as to the position of a prime minister um, for the in the absence of any candidate for the prime minister, maybe the present prime minister or President Duterte himself will have to continue on until there will be an orderly process for another election of more members of the Congress or House of Parliament and the presidency itself. But there should be no gap in the processes because, vacuum or without any governance at all or administration of any normal and scheduled elections or processes or even the enforcement of the laws will have to go on. And there will be more orderly conduct of enforcement in the absence of anything else, because disorder and chaos loves a vacuum. If there's no activity, normal activity as scheduled, there will be more disorderly conduct and more uh, adjustments to be suggested by the people themselves, because there is no existing uh, representation of their districts and provinces in one common House of Parliament.
Thank you, Dr. Posadas. Madam Chair Magdamo, will you be able to chime in there?
Yes, although I see Giancarlo raising his hand, no? But anyway, this will be short. Regarding the point of Jaime Hernandez, who by the way, he's my friend, no? Kasama ko siya ng People Power 1986, nagtutulak ng tangke. He was with me at that time, no? Regarding his point about no elections in 2022 next year, I think we are not going to have any elections next year. Even if we proceed with the elections, there will be none because Smartmatic will be the one counting it. So what will be happening next year is selection rather than election. So anyway, assuming that Sara Duterte runs as president and Rodrigo Duterte runs as vice president, since Smartmatic is the one counting, most probably that's it. It's a done deal. However, we can use that as kahit paano magagalit ang tao. Medyo pangit tingnan, nakakasuka tingnan. Actually, the people's anger may become the key to clamoring for system change, and that's where 1899 perhaps can come in.
That means no vacuum, no suspension.
Okay, go ahead, Giancarlo. We recognize now. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. No, may I ask a question lang po? What is the role of youth now in this changes we're about to bring, and why is it important that we should follow the 1899 Constitution?
Chapi-chapi ka,
That's the two questions lang po.
Chapi-chapi ka, Giancarlo. Chapi-chapi ka. Ayusin mo ang audio mo. Repeat it.
Meron ka yung regular na.
Your question is, why is it important to do the 1899 Constitution or to adopt it?
Yes.
Okay,
What is the role of the youth?
Dr. Posadas, you can respond to the question.
Well, since everybody or majority of the population of the Philippines want change, it might as well be a complete logical change into another form of government. Because if we remain with the same form of government under the 1987 Constitution, then there will be no changes at all. And even if we only change incompletely, you know, in logic, there's such a thing as when you change something, the substance of something, you got to change the whole thing. Because if you don't change substantially, all the natures and features of that substance remain to contaminate some more. So without complete logical change of the system, not just a mere overhaul of the present system, because overhaul means that you are just overhauling some parts or making new some of the parts of the same system. But the same problem will remain because there will be contamination, deep-rooted entrenchment or corruption will still remain lurking in the same substance. So might as well, if we change completely and orderly, and what more could be more orderly and peaceful and valid and still existing than the Malolos 1899 Constitution. It's there. All we need to do is just transfer a ship to an existing ship that's ready to go. Now from the sinking ship of 1997 Constitution.
As geometry says, the whole is equal to the sum of the whole is the whole is the sum of all parts. So pag isang part hindi kasama doon, it's not whole. Tama ka doon. The whole is the sum of all parts.
Okay, do you also have a question, Dr. Bartolobet? I'm recognizing you if you have a question for the speaker.
Napakaganda yung niyo, proposition niyo. Ang kailangan lang talagang may movement, malakas.
Yes, that's what we're trying to build with the presentation of Dr. Posadas.
May I just inform you that Sir Tony Santillan is with...
I'm actually with your advocacy. At kailangan may movement na malaki, malakas. So kung di lang tayo, how do you go about it?
Yeah. Okay, I'm also recognizing now Jingle Menes because you have not spoken yet. And after that, I will recognize Geoffrey Balse again, and then later on, Giancarlo. Go ahead, Jingle, go ahead. You unmute yourself and it's your turn.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Sir Hill, correct me if I'm wrong. This is a very simple question. If 1899 Constitution will be adopted or will take effect, will these government agencies or local government organizations like DOH, FDA, IATF, and other global organizations that are connected here in the Philippines, will this all be vanished or dissolved? And will this fake pandemic will be ended right after taking effect this 1899 Constitution? Thank you.
Dr. Posadas, you can reply.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, can I request Melchor to, I defer to Mr. Attorney Melchor Magdamo to answer for me, please.
Okay.
The words, will 1899 Constitution vanish or dissolve? No, yan ang question ni Jingle, no? Gradually, yes. Gradually.
S20.
Vanish and dissolve them.
Password.
Gradually. How fast, I do not know.
Hindi ko alam, sandali.
Faster, the better. Yes.
Well, point of information, if these are treaties that we have to inherit and we are bound by those treaties, we have to repudiate and withdraw from those treaties to be able to stop them. That is just a legal convention of the law. Okay,
Small letter.
A follow-up question there or what?
Bravo Yankee.
Bravo Yankee double.
Charlie. Hindi. Letters.
Okay.
Small letters.
BY.
BY. C as in Charlie. Z as in
Are you talking? Please mute yourself.
BYCB.
4590.
Go ahead, Jingle. Are you satisfied with the answer?
I hope so. It will answer as long as this scamdemic will have a solution in the very in the soonest time. I think so. I think so.
I think the comment there that's relevant made by Melchor Magdamo would be that if there are strong powers that are made available to the executive because of this adoption of the 1899 Constitution, then perhaps a more vigorous response to end the pandemic would occur. But he was not very definitive about when it would happen. But it will be much more speedy than the way it is done now. Okay?
I think so. If the ADOH and ATF will be no longer existing or will no longer be functioning in our country, I think so. This pandemic will end also as long as this organization will, because these are the organization only that are call this one. They are mandating the country. They are the people connected to the globalists to dictate this kind of a situation of us. Because they give us so much suffering in the whole country, and especially to the small Filipinos. Thank you.
That's right. We have to be able to do what you want to do. We have to be able to shift to the Malolos Constitution first. So that is the first order of business. So go ahead, Geoffrey Bauche, you recognize.
Yes, thank you. I wish to express support for two things. The first is the reason for shifting to the 1899 Constitution is, it's like, have you ever found yourself lost when you were driving because you're not getting to the destination you wanted? The way to get back is to find out where we made the wrong turns. We made wrong turns in 1987. We made wrong turns in 1973. We also made the wrong turns in 1935, being accepting ourselves as a commonwealth. Therefore, the only way we can find our way back is to start from the beginning, our original our original point, which is 1899, the first republic, which was never dissolved, and whose sovereignty was never ceded. The second is, while dealing with the word sovereignty, that is the core of the question of jingle. We have to understand what sovereignty means. And under democracy, sovereignty begins with us as the individual. The IATF and the WHO has actually violated our very sovereignty by expressly forbidding us to explore traditional remedies that we could resort to with our doctors based on the Hippocratic Oath, the Helsinki Declaration, that the doctors have the responsibility to apply therapies based on comparing notes with their peers, in the same way scientists do. We have been deprived of those rights. And this 1899 Constitution will enable us to assert our sovereignty again, such that rather than simply dismissing or quitting from the IATF and WHO, we will tell them, will you respect our sovereignty or not? Because if you will not respect our sovereignty, then you give us no choice but to leave. So this has to be a very educational revolution and understanding of what the rule of law is under a democracy, under a republic. Thank you very much.
Very well said, Mr. Geoffrey Bauche. Another way of saying it is the way to the future is through the past. And so we are tracing our past so that we can go into our future in a more secure and a more sovereign manner. So next speaker recognized is Giancarlo. Go ahead, Giancarlo. Giancarlo, you recognize of CDO, Cagayan de Oro. Giancarlo? Okay, since you're not speaking, I recognize Melchor Magdamo. Unmute yourself, Melchor, you're muted.
Just a short point to carry on from the comment of Jingle and Joffrey about the pandemic and our right to heal ourselves in the best way. No, maybe what we can do now, let this group, this parliamentary group, designate our health minister to neutralize Secretary Duque. Shadow health.
Dr. Bartolabak, if you will volunteer.
You know what? Let's leave politics to politicians. Leave science to scientists. That's all. It's as simple as that.
By the way, Dr. Bartolabak is the valedictorian of my class. And just like Duterte, I follow my valedictorian.
Long time ago. Stop mentioning that anymore, Dr. Hilbrand.
Go ahead. I'm recognizing Aida Enriquez. Go ahead, Aida. I saw you raise your hand. You're muted, Aida. Unmute yourself.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was thinking, we have been
Ma'am, ang
talking
electric fan
about.
mo. Ma'am, ang electric fan mo is is the one making the noise, unnecessary noise. Baka switch off, please. Switch it off. Switch it off.
Hello.
Okay, okay na.
Go ahead, Aida.
Okay.
Very clear.
I was thinking about the party list. We have not acknowledged that yet. What happens with the party list program? Are we going to still use that, or are we going to ditch that?
Dr. Posadas, can you reply to that?
Yeah, since new qualifications for elections or for candidates will have to be formed and changed, so to speak. And the fact that there's a move now, even now, for the abolishment or disqualification of party lists because of their, so-called association with the Communist Party of the Philippines. So it will depend, maybe at that point in time, when decidedly, some way or another, that they are no longer qualified to run for this time as a member of the one house parliament. So we will have to just watch out, because after all, they are questionable now as to their affiliation and their loyalty and allegiance to our republic. So in anticipation of that, the new form of parliamentary federal government will have a commission to see to it or investigate or decide, and on a process wherein they can probably will have to be eliminated even as candidates. So they will in a way no longer exist.
Does it go for all the party list, or just for those that are taken as against the government?
Yes, I mean that is more common sense, in that they will be selective. So everything will be
that means the party list system stays, but we are going to be very selective in getting this party list to enter.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Because I know of some party lists who were not able to enter because they don't have the money. What happens to them?
Well, maybe that will again depend on the qualifications and conditions and terms of being a candidate to even the prime minister position and the as a member of the one house parliament. So maybe money will not be so important anymore, because then there will be the true will or sovereignty of independence for electing officials. Will have to fill up the gap for qualifying for the terms and conditions of being a candidate.
The COMELEC, they were determining the qualifications. So habang nandiyan ang COMELEC, wala tayong
Yes, yes. That is a very big problem, the requirement. Before you become accredited as a party list, you have to have the money first. You have to give the money first. And that is not a small amount. It runs into millions also.
There will be a new set. There will be a new set of qualifications, terms, and conditions for candidacy. So rest assured that since you are going to change, you might as well change anything that will not be to the best interest of the people.
Okay, I agree with you on that. Thank you very much, Dr. Posada.
She wants to talk.
Welcome.
Wilma, you have the floor. Wilma Manzanillo, you have the floor. Wilma, go ahead. Wilma, you have the floor because you were flashing your icon earlier. Wilma Manzanillo, you have the floor. I recognize you. Wilma, do you hear me? You have the floor right now. Okay, since Wilma cannot hear me, I recognize Giancarlo of the CDO. Go ahead, Giancarlo, you have the floor. Giancarlo, you have the floor. Okay, since you're not speaking, I recognize John Fabiano. Go ahead, John.
I have a unique question to Sir Robert Posadas. Can we change the name of our country from Philippines back to Maharlika according to 1899 Constitution?
Yeah, maybe that will be taken up in the new one house parliament, one house parliamentary Congress. And if there's a resolution to change the name of the Republic of the Philippines, so be it. But when we do, it becomes a law. But that doesn't really matter much, because what is in a name, a rose is a rose, other than what you can perceive it for. So if there's one resolution and a law that's passed to change the Philippines or the Philippines name, so be it. There's really nothing that we can do much about it.
Okay. And my another question is, what if the war? What if the war by other country, especially China, against our country happened after our constitution back to 1899? That's like what happened in Philippine-American War, the year the Malolos Constitution was launched. What are we going to solve this conflict? Because other superpower countries, especially from US, do not want our country to be developed.
Well, when the time comes, we will have our own blood, sweat, and tears to defend. If not with the bamboos and bolos, we have no choice but to defend the new constitution and the new government system.
Okay. Anybody else who would like to ask a question, recognize Ida. Go ahead, Ida, you have the floor. You are again muted. You're again muted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask, how do we go on with our foreign what do you call this? Our foreign service, our treaties, our agreements with other countries. How do we do that?
Yes. Yeah, first off, as I mentioned in my privileged speech, that our policy will always be self-reliance. And
Okay.
a nation without self-reliance is not truly independent at all, because we will still be dealing with international relationship uh, under influence of either colonialism or any other influence that intervenes with our sovereignty. So we will also start with the new form of government with self-reliance and at arm's length. And we will see it that we will probably renegotiate and make adjustments with all other existing treaties. And that will be taken up as the time goes by, and accordingly, when the time comes for us to really consider everything else other than our own national and local issues. But rest assured that
So,
we will make all the adjustments as per our self-reliance stance and independent foreign policy. And it doesn't have to be anti-American or any other country at all. It has to be at arm's length dealing with all other countries, be it in Asia or in Europe or anywhere else in the world.
sir, if I may.
Go ahead.
So,
Go ahead, Ida.
it's going to be on a case-to-case basis. It's not going to be like we have the parliament and then we abrogate everything. It's going to be a case-to-case basis. Am I correct
Yeah,
there?
yeah. In the parliament itself, when it's already formed after the 22 elections for the parliament, you have to remember that the existing members of Congress and Senate now will have to continue on as members of that
Yes.
temporary parliament. So whatever they do will be according already to the 1899 Constitution. Remember, there's no longer House of Representatives and Senate. There will just be one House Parliament, and they will have to act accordingly, make adjustments or commissions or investigations, whatever they need to do under the legislature, and it will be all according to the 1899 Constitution.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, any more questions right now? Would you like to ask a question? Okay, Wilma Manzanillo, you'd like to talk? Bienvenido Lorque, would you like to contribute to the discussion here? So nobody else has a question. You are now releasing the speaker on a point of privilege from the interpellation phase. Okay, so no more questions on the point of privilege of the speaker of the delegation from Pangasinan. So we will close that interpellation phase, and we will recommend the speech to the review of the Committee on Constitutional Reforms, which we have in our group, and any resolutions that will come out of it, including any resolutions that the speaker has prepared, will be studied by that committee, and we will go into the plenary session again on June 12 to ratify that resolution as the sense of the Congress. So thank you very much, Dr. Robert Posadas, for that presentation.
Mr. Speaker, I wonder, so this in effect, do we have to right now on the first plenary make a resolution to adopt and recognize the 1899 Constitution as our Constitution to take place on June 12, 2021?
Yes, a call for the country perhaps to adopt it, we can adopt that as a resolution. We are not empowered to impose it in the country, but we are empowered to make the call. So we will make that call on June 12th in a resolution that your group, together with the Committee on Constitutional Reforms, will prepare.
To make this event this session more effective and more historic, so to speak, can we put forth a resolution to suspend the national emergency law, and from there on, everything will emanate accordingly, adjustments and recognition of a new Secretary of Department of Health, and so forth and so on, to suspend the suspension of our individual rights under this lockdown and national emergency, which after all, in reality, has already expired. So therefore, it's null and void and no longer imposed on the barangay units or LGUs, that they can already act with independence and their own decisions and discretions to make sure that their units are governed accordingly to their needs, like the adjustments that Governor Gwen Garcia in Cebu made, which is very effective now, as though the emergency law does no longer apply in Cebu, because Gwen Garcia is acting independently according to her jurisdiction's privileges and so I'd like to propose a resolution to suspend the national emergency law that's existing now in the Philippines.
Okay, I'm recognizing Melchor Magdamo. He would like to say something about that. You recognize Melchor.
As a matter of strategy, what we can do for publicity and impact, perhaps we can issue a resolution, this parliament, that
there you go.
The 14th right now.
Yeah.
Congratulating Governor Garcia, because she was correct on that point legally when she said Cebu is no longer under the jurisdiction of the medical martial law because of a provision, a clear provision in section 105 of the local government code. The IATF has a life of only 6 months. So they are way beyond the 6-month period already. So Governor Gwen Garcia of Cebu is correct. So if we want to make noise, no, this parliament right now, if we want to make noise, we can simply by congratulating, issue a resolution congratulating Governor.
There you go. Correct.
Gwen Garcia for her bravery, because she's correct legally. This 1899 parliament can make waves, no, on June 12th, perhaps.
We are
make
the
people aware.
Yes, correct. We are the 1899 parliament, but we are not the sitting government. We are a shadow government. We are a shadow generating. Our resolutions will be applying to ourselves and to a recommendation to the people who are in power right now, as well as to the rest of the country. Anything else, Mr. Magdamo?
Mr. Speaker, it's considered to be a shadow resolution to have an impact, at least to get attention and perception that we are moving on.
We don't do shadow resolutions. We have a resolution that applies to our shadow status as a shadow of the Parliament of the Web.
Correct.
And that's what we have to do.
Nevertheless, it's documented and put forth.
Yes, that is why your speech is being referred to the Committee on Constitutional Reforms and any other relevant committees to create all of those resolutions, which you will present in first reading and ratification immediately on June 12 plenary session of this Congress.
So I gather that's a second demotion from Melchor Magdamo.
You have your second demotion from
Quezon.
Yes, second demotion. And I saw also Michael Alunan. He hasn't spoken yet. I saw him there in the attendees.
I recognize Michael Alunan if he wants to say something. Mr. Michael Alunan, you recognize. You're muted right now. You're muted. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Luna. Michael Alunan, we cannot hear you. Go ahead. Oh, he disappeared. Where is he now? He's gone. He's there. Go ahead, Mr. Alunan. You're recognized. Your video is sort of mixed up. Go ahead, Mr. Alunan, Michael Alunan. We cannot hear you. Something wrong with the connection of Michael Alunan. We cannot hear him at all. No, we have to wait till we can hear him. So anybody else right now? Okay, Michael Alunan, you're there now? We cannot hear you. Okay, there's some, he's signaling us that you cannot talk or whatever. Connection is very poor. We have to go to other speakers right now. Giancarlo, you were raising your hand earlier. Go ahead, you can talk right now. Okay, if there anybody else who would would like to add any comments so far? So okay, so any more suggestions, Dr. Robert Posadas, before we close your interpellation phase, and then we proceed with other business, if there are any more?
May I speak?
Go ahead, you recognize Jaime Hernandez.
Yes. If we, just as we have already decided to come out with a shadow resolution on that matter being raised by Attorney Magdamo, one point that we could, I think, suggest is that for the president to declare a revolutionary government, the president being our national leader in the revolutionary government, is that I have now experienced all this. I am now in the hospital. And then I think this happens to everyone else who needs medical attention. The money that would otherwise go to elections could go to defraying all the money, to defraying all the expenses needed by the people, so that we could draw the support of the people instead of the money going to elections again. Because in every elections, the people who gets richer are the printers, Smartmatic for one, will be there. And then the printers, all these businesses who had linked or who had linked to elections will be getting the public money. Okay, so we could come out with a resolution also that to put up a government now, a revolutionary government under the 1899. We are telling the people that we are sensitive now to the what is happening now to our country.
The pandemic.
Especially that we are now under medical emergency. So that would save our country big money instead of, again, spending for nonsense election. Okay. Thank you very much.
Just noted, and maybe Dr. Posadas will take note of that, as well as Attorney Melchor Magdamo.
Thank you,
So,
Mr. Speaker.
or I think Ida is raising his hand, so I'm recognizing you, Ida.
Yes, regarding our election on 2022, many people are asking, are putting their hopes into a changed barangay, because our barangay officials are in the holdover capacity na. How long have they been in office? Ano lang siya, extended lang siya ng extended. But this time, they said, the barangay officers will also be elected. In short, there will be new barangay officers by 2022 election. So if we do not have an election, our lowest unit will not change.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, there is
it's a big problem.
Point of information. There is some proposal that in case something drastic happens in the national governance, like a shift to the Malolos Constitution or a declaration of a revolutionary government by the highest authorities in the land, perhaps the local elections should proceed, but not the national elections. So most likely the priority would be given to the barangay elections as well, since they are the lowest unit of the governance in the country. So we can have that, because if you recall our history, the Philippines started having local elections in 1860.
Yes.
But the Gobernador Silio or the Gobernador General is always appointed by Spain. But the local presidentes and the local gobernadorcillos were already elected by the people since 1860. So local elections can proceed, but the national elections may be suspended. But this is just all speculation. It's just a point of information I'm sharing with the body. Any more comments so far?
So we can, we can try to use that.
Yes, that is a part of our history. It can be applied.
Okay, I agree. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
So, well, as I will bring the interpellation process of in the end, and I now open the floor for other business that the plenary can take up. Anything else being suggested? Riaco Isabelo, you want to talk? You recognize?
No, sir.
Okay. So, is Michael Alunan, are you able to talk now? Michael Alunan, you recognize. You can unmute yourself. Are you not able to unmute yourself? No, you're unmuted now. You can talk. You try to talk. There's none. There's no. Well, I think his audio is not working.
Hello.
I couldn't share anything. Okay, Jaime Hernandez, you're again recognized. If you want to add anything to what you're saying.
Yes, thank you. As it is very important to note here that the revolutionary mood is always present if we are to really react or act on having a revolutionary government. For example, we have a problem. Let's say every local government has its problem, especially, for example, when it comes to local governance and with respect to corruption. And then I am referring to a particular, I will not mention here for now, but for example, the national government has been unloading the IRA, Internal Revenue Funds. And there was this, from my personal knowledge, there is this town that spent all the ERA funds on supposedly to be given to the people, the officials have pocketed the money, all of the money. So by declaring a revolutionary government, by instituting the 1899 elections, we will now, 1899 constitution, we will now forestall people now in office from getting the ERA funds again. So maybe here is a situation now where the people, for example, if there is a group of people now seizing the town hall, the provincial capital or town halls and provincial capitals, we cannot avoid that. If we are to really get this structural problem, this structural problem we have now in local government. So we have to seize power. We have to seize for example, this is a kind of operational, an operative act in the making that people set to install a local revolutionary government will have to preliminarily seize power to stop them from getting all the ERA to be pocketed again by them. That is my personal knowledge. Down from
Okay,
below.
I think with regard to your comment, I would like to elicit a comment from Benvenido Lorque. Mr. Benvenido Lorque, if you are listening and you are hearing me, I'm giving you the floor so that you can make a response to the comment of Mr. Jaime Hernandez. Go ahead, Mr. Benvenido Lorque. Maybe Mr. Lorque is not in his post right now. He has no response from us. So any other business you would like to take up before we close the session? I think since nobody else is bringing up new business, I would like to give our thanks to Dr. Posadas for his point of privilege presentation today and his patience in answering questions, and also to those who have given and shared their expertise with us in clarifying matters. I would like to give thanks as well. So our next plenary session is scheduled at on July 12th, and I also would like to thank Dr. Rufino Bartolaba for facilitating this. He is the one who was giving us the facility to have an use of the Zoom account, which is without interruptions. So you notice that there were no 40-minute interruptions in our talk today. So unless there are any other questions, I will bang the gavel now to adjourn the session, but not sine die. Adjourn it for the next session that we'll be having again on June 12th. Okay? So thank you everybody for being in attendance, and I hope to see you again in the scheduled plenary on June 12th, which will be also our Independence Day. Thank you very much, Jingle, Wilma, Jaime, everybody who's here.
Thank you.
Also,
Congratulations, Mr. Speaker.
Attorney Melchor, and particularly Dr. Posadas, who prepared and presented a very good speech for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you for conducting successfully our first congressional session, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Good day to everybody.
Okay.
Good day.